Hello, it's Nik and Adinah Johnson. It's been a minute since we've been on camera, so we're happy to be back. And what we want to talk about today is boundaries. And I think it's so important. And this is from the legendary authors Cloud and Townsend. And we have quite a few boundaries here that we're going to take a look at. And some of them are self explanatory, and some of them we're just going to say them and keep it moving. That way we can get through the list. So, because it's quite a few. So,
Question. Um, if if you were to describe or explain what a boundary is.
another good way of saying boundary is fences. It keeps other people at the length or the area where you want them to be outside of your personal. I think so often we drop our boundaries with individuals and then we find out that they're not the person that we really want to know our intimate secrets and business, because they may repeat it, they may say it in the wrong company. And so it's just so important that we have those boundaries and know where our boundaries are. Another boundary is your skin, because it keeps certain things out and it keeps blood vessels and all the important things in. So fences is a good way to say boundaries. It's just to keep things what need to be over here and other things out.
Okay, so my final question around boundaries. Are these boundaries as it relates to your relationship with your spouse or your interactions with others?
Your interactions with others. It's not boundaries with your spouse. That's a whole different set of boundaries, because there are some important boundaries there too. And we're not getting into that today. We will get into that another time, because there are so many other boundaries. And it's so funny when it comes to our spouses. I may have a boundary that someone else may not have with their spouse. Mm-hmm. And so it's so important that you understand where your boundaries are with certain individuals.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
All right. So the first boundary, and this is people that we're first meeting or individuals that we don't really know.
Miss Parker.
Don't start. I'm not even going to give this story about the glasses. But anyway, the first one, and these are signs of unhealthy interpersonal boundaries, and it's telling all. And it's so important. Number one is telling all, and that's telling all of your personal business to individuals that you really don't know. So that's the first one. Talking at an intimate level at the first meeting. And that happens a lot. I wouldn't say that is important. I think it's more people that you meet in the grocery store or people that you meet on your job. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a counselor, because counselors have certain responsibilities that they need to take care of. So therefore they will have questions that will get deeper into why you're there, and you don't want to waste your time or your money talking to a counselor and not really telling intimate details.
Is it safe to say that individuals that tell all are telling intimate levels on first meetings? And sometimes these individuals have a certain amount of we need to trust individuals, but I think that
too much trust, and they lack interpersonal boundaries.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's very important, because you don't want to tell individuals your personal business or things that are. And we've all met those people where we meet them in the grocery store and they're telling things that we're like, whoa.
Like, are you really telling me this?
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable. Right. Falling in love with a new acquaintance, and I think that happens a lot, especially with internet. I think so many people feel like they know individuals because they're on the internet or they've met on the chat room and so on and so forth. So falling in love with a new acquaintance, and that happens a lot, unfortunately, but that is a sign of unhealthy boundaries. I think that happens because individuals get physical with individuals really fast, and so therefore they end up falling with the in love experience, and it's not really love.
Yeah, sometimes that illusion of intimacy.
Yeah, because you've gotten physical with a person. And that's why when we do premarital counseling, we have individuals to say they won't have physical relations. Yeah, they have to abstain, because it really clouds your judgment when dealing with certain instances. It really clouds the judgment. So Being overwhelmed by a person or preoccupied. I think that happens a lot. And that's number 4. I'm sorry, that's number 5.
Mhm.
But that happens a lot with individuals where we're overwhelmed or preoccupied with a person. And that happens a lot of times with celebrities or stars, or, where we're preoccupied or we're just really too involved with individuals. Falling in love with anyone who reaches out. That is a sign of a definite
Yeah.
unhealthy boundary, where you fall in love with anybody who reaches out. You're just really smitten with that person really early.
It's trying to get that attention. Oftentimes you see people, they are so starved for attention that any attention that they get, whether it's healthy or not, they're just happy to get it.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. Or, individuals trying to get so many likes. I know with us, I usually don't put anything on social media. Our kids have been on social media in years. And that's just because it's personal, and I don't, and it took me a while to even put our children on social media in the beginning. I don't know if you remember that. But then I lightened up a little bit and put them out there just a little bit, and then it got to the place where I was like, nah, we're not doing that anymore. So, and that's one thing. Acting on the first sexual impulse. I think that's very important, and that's a sign of an unhealthy boundary, because I think it's so important that you have individuals to wait a while before you get into physical intimacy with a person. And that causes problems if you do that way too early. And we talked about that in an earlier one, as far as getting physical, because it really clouds our judgment. And it gives us the illusion that we're closer than what we really are, because you have gotten physical, especially for women. I think guys aren't the same way, more so because
Men tend to compartmentalize it
yeah.
very well.
And I think sometimes men look at it too as it's just something that has to happen.
It's transactional.
Yeah, and that's not how women look at it, because you're entering a woman's body. And so, if someone lets you into their body, that's very intimate for them, and it may not be the same for the guy. So, being sexual for your partner and not yourself, that's a major boundary. What do you think about that as a guy? I know, I put you on the spot.
I'm being sexual for your partner,
and not yourself, yes.
I don't know.
You plead the fifth. It looks like you want to plead the fifth.
I mean, sometimes you might not feel sexy, but sometimes you gotta be sexy. So I don't know. For other people outside of your relationship, not so much, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to talk about the times.
Again, we're not talking about married people. We're talking about new acquaintances, people that you don't really know.
I completely agree. If that's the case, that you're just trying to get your sexy on just for those purposes, I completely agree.
Stick with me here.
I'm with you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Going against your personal values or rights to please others, and that's very important. That's, like we say, unhealthy boundaries. Not noticing when someone else displays inappropriate boundaries, and that's just being clouded. I think that happens especially with a lot of young people, where they don't understand that that is a boundary and you don't want to cross it. And that's why it's important for us to teach our children the importance of boundaries and letting them know. I think a lot of parents teach their kids things such as, well, that's my business. And it's like, well, what exactly does that mean? I think kids don't quite understand what they're saying about that. And I know I've been known to tell our kids too, well, that's personal. You don't want to talk about that outside of the family. I've had to tell our son that a couple times. And, then I had to kind of explain, okay, you can share this with certain individuals, but you're not going to tell this to the cafeteria lady at your school. I know you think you like her a lot, and she, is very nice to you, but you don't tell her things that's going on in the household or in the family.
Yeah, I believe that being able to acknowledge when someone else displays inappropriate boundaries is extremely important, because, and I guess I think of that when I think of inappropriate touching and personal space.
Yeah.
I think, especially for kids, I think that's extremely important to know that there's an amount of personal space that you deserve, And so if someone is in that personal space, you should be able to identify that.
Yeah.
And also I think there's an episode of Seinfeld where they talk about the close talker, where the person just is really close and they talk to them. They're like, you're in my personal space. Like they're a close talker.
Yeah.
And I think being able to acknowledge unhealthy boundaries at least helps you. If you can acknowledge it by somebody else, you may be able to acknowledge it when you do it yourself.
Yeah. I know I have to tell our son, he's 9, but he'll try to squeeze through the tiniest space. And I have to tell him a lot of times, personal space, back up. Don't, touch anybody, or don't brush up against someone because it's inappropriate. So, not noticing when someone else is displaying, we talked about that. Not noticing when someone else invades your boundaries, and that's so important. I think pregnant women are good about that, because a lot of times people want to touch their baby or touch their body, and they're like, whoa, a lot of people are like uncomfortable with that. I never touched a pregnant belly until I had one of my own. And it was really, really shocking and weird.
Yeah, I didn't think of a whole lot of stuff until you were pregnant, and then I became a lot more conscious of things like that.
Yeah, and so I think that's very important. Not noticing when individuals invade your boundaries. Accepting food, gifts, touch, or sex that you don't want, and that's a definite one. And we can go through the list of that one, but that's why we tell kids, all the time, don't take candy and don't take gifts. And a lot of times someone will get a gift, or you'll present a gift, and it's like, well, I really can't take that gift. So I think, and most companies are very, they have set boundaries on that, how much you can take. Yeah, how much you can take as far as a gift. Touching a person without asking, and again, that goes back, I think one of the examples of that is when someone's pregnant. And I think it's just just rule of thumb: do not touch anybody. It's very important. I know as a youth counselor, I work with kids, and they would say a lot of times, I just don't like to be touched. And that's because they have been touched inappropriate. And so you never know what type of response you'll get from someone if you touch them. I know my mom has a bad habit of that. I probably shouldn't say that out loud. But she has a bad habit of touching people. And I'm like, why are you touching people?
Yeah,
You're in the store, stop it.
I think there's a verse in the Bible where the speech lay hands on no one without permission or something like that. I wish I recall the verse, but there's something in that just.
I think it's touch no man suddenly.
So we just really want to make sure that we don't do that. And I know I'm real. That's my thing. I don't necessarily like for people to touch people without permission. That's big on my book. I don't like that. So
you don't like for people to touch who?
Me.
You. Oh,
yeah,
you.
Me.
Oh.
That's my thing. Especially the whole. The biggest thing especially when I was younger, one thing I didn't necessarily like, and I would see people do it, and it would just kind of make my skin crawl. Is the you look tense. Let me give you a massage. I don't like that move. That was a common one. Somebody comes back and be like, don't touch me. And I would see people, it would literally cause it bothered me so much.
Yeah.
It would really not sit well with me when I see that happen to somebody. I would literally look at them. And
when you were a kid.
Yeah, not a kid, teenager, even young person,
This is funny. I've never heard this.
Yeah, you thought you heard all the stories, huh? Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't sure, but that's funny.
Yeah, I never was a fan of that. Don't do that.
You gotta tell me more about that later. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I said I got an issue with you doing it, but
of course not. We've been married for 20 years. Yeah. Of course not. Alrighty. Yeah, you're more like touch me. I'm not gonna get into it with you today. Talking as much as you can for the sake of taking as much as you can for the sake of getting. And that is very inappropriate. A lot of people do that where they're just like, well, if they're gonna give it, I'm gonna take it, and that's annoying to me.
You mean get them to go box while the event's still going on?
Oh my God. Stop it. I hope I'm not.
Everybody ain't ate yet. You don't get into the go box. You just don't.
Okay, moving right along. I'm not getting into that. Oh my gosh, I can't even see now. giving as much as you can give for the sake of giving. And I think that's a big one because I'm a giver and I like to give a lot, but it's important to, I think with me, I don't want to give so much till it hurts or I'm taken away from my family, which we're not in that position where we would hurt ourselves if we give, gifts or trinkets or different things like that. So, but it's important not to do that because you will have individuals that will take as much as they can, like the one previously, if you're a giver. And I think too, a lot of times, individuals who aren't givers, they've had a hard time and they perceive me as having an ulterior motive when I'm a giver like that. And so I think just by the nature of who I am, they've noticed that, oh my God, she just enjoys giving. And so, but you have to be careful and make sure you're within your boundaries. Allowing someone to take as much as they can from you, and again, you have to cut that off. You have to just really stop that if the person is really taking advantage. Letting others direct your life, and I think that's a big one with young people. You look like you have something to say on that one.
That's one thing I dig my heels in. I've always felt like, win, lose, or draw. I think it's extremely important that the direction that I take or my family takes is
your choice,
based upon the decisions that we make, not based upon what somebody say. If I was you or what you should do. That don't resonate with me. That's usually when I really I tune them out. Whenever somebody says that, I usually don't listen because I'm just not receptive to that.
Yeah,
and I do want to say this. It's not that I'm above feedback, because I'm not. But my thing is, I think that there is a particular way that things should be delivered, and also as far as just doing what somebody directs you to do, I can't. Because at the end, when it's all said and done, I'm going to be held responsible and accountable for whatever
your family
the result is. So I have to be, now granted, if someone tells me something and I evaluate everything and the direction that I want to go or what I want to do aligns with what they recommended or said, great, but I'm not going to do it just because somebody else tells me to do it.
Yeah.
Because at that particular point, I'm going to deal with resentment and I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think that happens with a lot of young people when they first get married. They have... Or even when a baby comes, you have parents trying to kind of interject their feelings and I think it's okay in that they're older and they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and when I mean your parents, I mean they're older, sometimes in their 60s, and they've lived a lot of life, so they can see around the corner more than people who are in their 20s or younger having kids. But it's still important for individuals to have their own boundaries and to have their own family and to, I always say if you're accepting money from someone or you're allowed them to pay bills or take care of you, then you kind of have to listen to what they're saying. And so as a young person, it's so important that you're taking care of your own responsibilities. That way you don't necessarily have to listen to a parent or a relative or a good friend because they're not paying for you or paying your way, and so that's important. So alrighty. Letting others describe your reality, and that's a big one, I think, as far as just social media and how many likes you get and so on and so forth. And that's why we maintain and teach our children to have their own self-esteem and to affirm themselves. That way they don't look for that affirmation outside. Believing others can anticipate your needs. Now that may be a boundary within a marriage, but we'll talk about that one in the context of marriage in another segment. Or another video. But believing others can anticipate your needs, that's not fair, because you really have to be honest and tell a person what you need and let them know, hey, this is what I need. And I think we talked about this before, whereas I had a job that I didn't too much like, and I told you I needed 4 times an hour, every 15 minutes, I needed you to give me an affirmation or tell me something that was wonderful. So I was telling you what I needed, but I think it was a little bit over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our son, our 9-year-old, is really good at that, where he'll say, I think, because sometimes his attitude gets in the way, and so he'll say, "Mommy, tell me good things about me," if I haven't told him within a certain time frame. Oh my gosh, you're wonderful, you're this and you're that, and pour it into him. And then he'll, if he's lacking in that area, he'll say, "Well, tell me some good things about me." And he was doing that when he was like 7. And so I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that one is definitely applicable in marriage as far as anticipating your needs. Because I know sometimes you don't even know what you want
Yeah.
or what you need. So it's kind of hard to put the burden or the expectation on somebody else who'll be able to do that. Because a lot of times you'll get disappointed because they may not know what you need, or even that you're in a position where you need something. So.
But that's why a lot of times when couples come together and say, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" to say nothing is discounting the fact that they probably just really want to know. Right. And so it's important for oftentimes for you to process your feelings and emotions and understand what's going on, so you can communicate effectively what's going on or what you need. Expecting others to fill your needs automatically, and that really goes with the other one, the previous one. Falling apart so someone can take care of you, and that's a major boundary. You'll see that happen a lot of times. Self-abuse, and I think self-abuse is very important, in that oftentimes we will abuse ourselves or have negative self-talk, whereas we would never say those things to our best friend or someone else. So it's important not to abuse yourself, even emotionally, because we have an automatic tape going on in our head, and it's so important that we use those affirmations and affirm ourselves, and not participate in self-abuse. So, okay. Okay. I thought you had something to say.
No, ma'am, not on that one. Don't beat yourself. Don't beat yourself. Don't beat yourself.
Like Liar, Liar. That movie.
Yeah. Kicking my butt. Yeah.
He said the other word.
Yeah, he
okay.
said the other word.
Sexual abuse and physical abuse. And that's a big one, sexual abuse. Physical abuse, that's a sign of an unhealthy boundary for sure. And then the last one is chemical and food abuse. And who doesn't abuse a nice piece of cake?
Hey, a little German chocolate, huh? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. But at the same time, there's also, there's gluttony when it comes to that. I think everything can be done in moderation. Yeah. So you really don't want to do those things. And when we say chemical abuse, we're definitely talking about drugs.
Yeah. Drugs.
Yeah.
So those are signs of unhealthy interpersonal boundaries. Did you have any other comments on anything?
No, I think that's a pretty comprehensive list as far as things, but just to be mindful that we're not, in this particular instance, talking about within the marriage relationship. We're talking about the interactions with others. We'll definitely try to put those in the description. So we have those there. All right, so as we see those, can you think of any times that you may have observed someone displaying any types of these unhealthy boundaries? Please feel free to put them down in the comment section. If you have not, we ask that you would subscribe and like the video, just for the simple fact it helps the magic that goes on in the background on Google, and it helps to get our content out to other people who are looking for resources when it comes to relationships. Also get notifications as well. So once you subscribe, also click the bell so that you'll be known whenever we share a video. I think that's about it.
That's it.
All right, so thank you all so much. At this particular point, we just ask that you continue to take care and keep loving one another. This is Nik and Adinah. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.